If I could say anything I wanted to anyone in the world right now, it would be all over Annette. Who died and made you Sherlock Holmes? Why is it any of your business if I don't do my math homework? And even if that somehow, in some way that you can understand, is your business, why is it your business why I didn't do it? First of all, you're not my mother. And second, even if you were my mother, you wouldn't care. You'd be in Philadelphia buying soft pretzels and Italian ices for your baby son, not checking in with your microwave oven maintenance son. Second of all, this is the free country. I have a God-given American right to avoid homework if it helps me in the pursuit of happiness. Don't you pay attention in social studies. I swear to God in that I haven't even read this chapter this week, but I know more than you do. You should move to Cuba immediately. And don't get me started on my father, Mr. Personality. If you ask me, he could use a good stern talking to as well. Dad, how about sometime this week, just for kicks, you try making eye contact with me? Would that be so painful? How about you ask me how my day was, and then actually listen while I'm telling you? Here are some sample questions you can try until you get good at this. Son, what did you learn in school today? How's your drumming going? And are you at all worried about your mom and your brother having disappeared into thin air and nobody's telling you thing one about what's going on with them? How about them Yankees? I think they might win the World Series this year. And any supposed father who doesn't even address his son and say once a day isn't even a father in my opinion. So thanks for being my sperm donor, Pop. Oh, and then there's my egg donor. Why hasn't she checked in with me this week? Am I so drastically unimportant? Is Philadelphia such a remote region of the planet that her cell phone won't work? Also, has she not noticed that these things are called payphones you can use for long distance communication when all else fails? Geez, she could have sent a pigeon with a message banded to his leg and it would have gotten to me by now. Bang on a log, send me some smoke signals, something. Finally, there's Mr. Raccoon Face, Jeffrey. I'm sure that by now he is looking better. Whatever little virus he had that was given his little fever is gone. And he's thoroughly enjoying his steady diet of high-fat, high-sugar street vendor food that doesn't even have a microwave for himself. Unlike his heroic older brother, who is gradually dying of freezer-burn food poisoning. By now, he probably has every single nurse there wrapped around his finger, waiting on him hand and foot, rushing over to get the remote control for his 300-channel satellite, so he doesn't have to exert himself. Plus, all the nurses probably look like older, even better developed versions of Renee Elver, and they're scurrying about, fluffing Jeffrey's pillows, while I'm stuck here getting lectured daily by Annette, because I'm skipping an assignment here and there while the rest of my family is on vacation. You can see now how folding the pages down was a good call on my part. The climax of the week actually came that afternoon. It was at an all-city jazz band rehearsal when I got to the high school. I found out that Brian was homesick. Because of that, I got to play the drum set for an hour and 40 minutes straight. I was smoking too. I always play well when I start out in a bad mood. For some reason, plus, I've been practicing so much that my wrists were just super quick. We played through some of our usual rehearsal repertoire, and the theme from this old 70s TV show called Barney Miller, some old jazz standards from the 1940s Disney medley, which is actually far, far cooler than it sounds. Then we got into one of those Latin pieces, Dizzy Gillespie song called Manteca. Without two drummers, I had to play crazy fast to make the percussion parts sound full enough. My right foot pounding out accents, my left foot cracking the hi-hat cymbal in the beats 2 and 4, and my right hand was going quick back and forth between the cowbell and the crash cymbal. My left hand was flying from the snare drum and the tom-toms and back. Suddenly, a rare and amazing thing happened to me. I was in the zone. You know how baseball players sometimes talk about games when the ball seemed to be coming at their bats in slow motion, like a huge, gigantic freeze-frame cantaloupe just waiting to be pounded? Yeah, that's how I felt. Like I could do no wrong. It was so far inside the beat that I wasn't thinking at all. My body just did everything perfectly, almost itself. Mr. Watras, who usually grades papers while the student conducts us through practice, stopped what he was doing to watch me. I could see a huge grin on his face, but I wasn't affected too much by this until I remember after. I was just grooving on drummer autopilot. Then Renee Albert walked in to visit her boyfriend, Biff, the guitar wonder. She must have come straight from varsity cheer practice. She was one of only 3 eighth graders who got to practice with the high school squad because she was wearing her uniform. I hope to God she had been watching for a while before I noticed her, because as soon as I looked up, the shock of seeing her there wearing only a small amount of lyrica and spandex and looking at me, knocking me out of the zone, far out of the zone, as in, oh, Pez, you dropped a stick right in the middle of a song. And it went tumbling across the room at 90 miles an hour, and it smashed into the bell of some senior's trumpet. And who knew brass was so flimsy anyway? By the way, the sound of the high school jazz band falling apart in mid-tune while one of the trumpet players is screaming at the drummer at the top of his lungs, and a piano player was in the mad throes of mad laughing fit just isn't something you want to hear. It's certainly not something you want the hottest girl in the 8th grade to hear. Renee looked away, but there was definitely a hint of a pleased smirk on her face for a split second. Then I was distracted by the senior trumpeter raging top volume spit spewing barrage of verbal abuse in my face. By the time Mr. Watras had stopped this guy from busting me open like an overstuffed pinata, Renee was gone. I was mortified, and Annette was still kind of snorting and giggling, which made for a fun ride home, although at least she couldn't snicker uncontrollably and bug me about my homework record at the same time. The next morning, my mom and Jeffrey returned from Philadelphia.